Well, hello and welcome to this video. Today I'm going to talk about the tripping points that most artists stumble on when building an artist business plan. So this in fact is a total beginner's video. Now I do have other videos on the full 7 steps that I advocate for your artist business plan, but I thought there seems to be so many times where people start and then never complete it. You know, you have the best intentions, you know you ought to have one, you have probably watched a lot of my videos and you're like, yeah, I think I need to do a business plan. You make a start, the whole thing is totally overwhelming, and there are, like I say, these trip points that you get to and you're like, do you know what, I'm just going to file this away, the document doesn't get completed, and you never look at it again. And this can be one of the key reasons why you don't get to build that successful, profitable art business doing what you love that you really want, right? So obviously I don't want that for you. So let's clear up these trip points today. And let me know in the comments, by the way, if you've started the plan but you haven't finished it, right? You're that person that goes, oh my God, I don't understand, I don't know how to do this bit, so I have stopped and not completed it. Because there's one thing starting it, there's a whole other thing completing it. Now, a quick caveat here, I do have some solutions for a full artist business plan, and I keep waving this in the air, but I do have a course, Build Your Artist Business Plan. Of course, walks you through video by video through all the 7 steps of my artist business plan. And I do have a couple of previous videos that kind of give you the highlights, and I've got a free checklist, all of which I'll be popping below this video. But like I said, it's really important, I think, to talk about and get some solutions around the trip points, the bits where you stop and you go, I can't answer that, so therefore I can't move forward. And what we really want you to be able to do, of course, is get to the end, complete it, and then use it. Okay, so before we dive on in, I am going to assume that you've done a piece that I talk about a lot, which is having a really clear, big vision of where you want to go. So a big vision might be one day you want to own your own gallery and have some staff working for you, predominantly have your own art, but maybe also have other artists work as well. Or your big dream might be to be completely financially free from passive income from your art. That means that you can, I don't know, travel the world. You know, the famous, I've got a ding on my phone, several dings, all off they go, and I'm sold a whole load of things that I'm lying on a beach. And a lot of people might be like, that's really unrealistic. But in today's world, it's actually not. Or you might have a dream of having your own studio built. You know, that was something I did back in the day. I carved up my little tiny garden in the UK and I had a purpose-built studio built in it. And I'm very lucky here in Perth, I have studios as well. I don't own the building, but you know, that could be a dream that you own your own studio one day, or you have a purpose-built studio. So I'm going to assume that you already know that bit, because understanding where you want to go is vital before you start the plan, because otherwise you might make a business plan that takes you over here when actually where you really wanted to go is over here, of course. And assuming that you have that in play, and if you haven't, by the way, then really take note on your notepad that you need to do that before kind of going through the business planning process. Otherwise, I say you could head off in the wrong direction, right? Because the plan is the stepping stones that get you to the big vision. So today we're going to discuss 5 trip points. Okay, so first up, of course, number 1, how much money do you want to make? This is all about the numbers. This is the first stumbling block or trip point, whatever we want to call it. And I've worked with so many people that when I ask them that question, well, how much money do you want to turn over in your art business? They don't know, or perhaps they do know, but the number feels a little bit scary, right? So very often what we do, we have the number in our head that we think we'd like to make, and then we downscale it right down here. It's like, oh, well, maybe it's this small number. But the thing is, if the number is too small, well, you're going to find out in a minute that it probably doesn't work logistically, but also it's not very motivating. You want something that you want to reach for. You don't want to put a number that's so big that you just think, oh, I can't possibly go from where I am now to making that. But you want something that you're like, okay, well, with a bit of a plan and some action, of course, it would be great to reach for that number. So that's kind of the number that you want. So I have a video that I'm going to put up here in the cards and link below here, which was all about business expenses. So that might be a good video to watch right at the beginning if you're not really sure about expenses, because we're talking about numbers at this point. So maybe after this one, watch that one, and that will give you some clarity there. So let's crunch a real example here. So example one might be that you, in your very first year, are actually quite happy just to break even. You don't want to make a profit. You don't need to draw a salary. You just don't want to be putting more of your own money perhaps into the business. So that's actually, although not exciting, it is quite a sensible place to start, especially if you're a little bit unsure or you haven't created much product, artwork yet. So this would be a good place to start if you're in that position. So taking the example from the previous video, we're going to allocate $500 a month, and you're going to change that, dollars, pounds, wherever you are. You're going to allocate, say, $500 a month for expenses. And then we're going to add $500 for what we call cash flow. So what does that mean? That means that in month 3, suddenly you've made a big order of canvases, because it's cheaper for you to buy 20 in one go than one at a time, for example. So suddenly one month, rather than having the same things going out every month, you've now got a big expense, or you've paid for a year up front of your website hosting, for example. So something like that, you need to have extra money in your account to cover that off. So that means that every month you're going to allow $1,000 to build up in your account. So that's just 12,000, obviously, turnover that you need to make in a year to break even, right? And you might say that's really low, but for some people, that's a perfect place to start. It gives you the chance to get all your ducks in a row and all the other things that you need to do. Like if you're a painter, creating paintings, creating artwork, right? Now, for example, 2, if you've already made some sales, or you've got a stock of artwork, or you're in a place where you can go for a higher target, let's look at this example. So say you've decided to turn over 36,000 in your year. So that's 3,000 a month. Your estimated expenses might be $1,000 a month, that cash flow. And now at this point, you might want to start putting aside for tax. That could be another 1,000 a month. So you've got 2,000 a month allocated for expenses and money that's staying in your account. And you'd like to take a little salary, not a lot, but a starter salary of say 1,000 a month. That gets you to your 3,000. So your task is to just set your annual turnover. And why don't you use one of the examples I've given you? If you're very first starting out, it's going to be perhaps you want to break even at something like 12,000 a year, or maybe you want to make a little bit more at 24,000, or maybe you prefer my example, you're already sort of got some things going on and you're going to go for 36,000. So all you need to do is make that decision and write it down. So that's the first one done. Now let's look at your stumbling block number 2. And this is actually what you're going to sell and the price point. Now, for some people, they struggle on what they're going to sell because maybe you haven't got a bulk of artwork, or you're undecided. Shall I sell originals? Shall I sell prints? Actually, I really love teaching. Should I be doing workshops first, or what should I be doing? And then, of course, the second part is, well, once I've decided what I'm doing, how on earth do I price them? Now, luckily for you, I do have a video specifically on that I'll link in the cards and below here, and that's my 6 steps to pricing. And I would really advocate watching that and actually going through that process so that you can end up with some very clear pricing strategy. So that's going to help you with that anyway. So ideally, you want to start with 1 to 3 items that you plan on selling. You start with the first item, and then once you have that up and running, you add in the second and add in the third. If you try and set up your business with 3 different things you want to be selling at the beginning, then you're going to really struggle to get those off the ground. So I always teach, just start with 1, get that up and running, and then add in the next one, and then add in the next one. So example here might be original art might be the first thing you get up and running. The second thing might be you make prints from some of the original art. And the third thing is that you do love teaching and people are asking you, and so you run some occasional workshops. So really what you need to do is list out the sizes that you're going to create your original artwork in. We're going to start with that first, and then you can replicate this for your prints. Now here I wouldn't recommend doing 10 different sizes. Think about the sizes that you're likely to be the most popular, that you feel the most happy working in. And here's the thing, it's a bit of a Goldilocks. Really, we want a small, we want a medium, and we want some large. So the medium is likely going to be what's going to be selling the most of. Some people just love small because that's the only space they've got in their home. And a few people are going to want something enormous because they've got the space for that. But probably if you really want to be selling a lot of original art, you want to go for something, now I used to say, that fits above the fireplace. You know, back in the UK, a lot of Victorian Georgian houses, in their main rooms, they used to have a fireplace and there was that space above. So my best sellers were 24 by 24 inches because they sat really nicely above the fireplace. Now obviously I found that out over a period of time. I definitely used to offer 12 by 12s, and then I started to offer larger 30 by 30 or 36 by 36. And occasionally I trialed some different sizes in between, but they were never as popular. So let's keep this really simple. Have something that fits in the small category, have something that fits in the medium category, and something that fits in the large category. Then you're going to watch the 6 steps to pricing, and from there you'll be able to work out what your price points are going to be. But for the example in this video, we're just going to go with, say, 250 for the small, 500 for the medium, and 1,000 for the large. So then you have to ask yourself the question, how many do I need to sell to meet my target? So obviously if you're going for the first example, 1,000 a month, you only need to sell 1 large one or 2 mediums or 4 smalls. But if you're going to be going for the larger target and you're only at the beginning selling original art, you need to sell a lot more of it, right? So you need to sell 6 small pieces, or you need to sell 3 of the $1,000, or you need to have higher price points. Like there's some variables here. So your task here is to just list out what you're going to be selling, whether it's originals, whether it's workshops, whether it's prints, whatever it is that you're going to be selling. You watch the 6 steps to pricing, you just get your starting prices. Remember, they can always go up. What you can't do with pricing is go down, all right? So you're better off starting at a slightly lower end, not too low, because that devalues everything. But you're better off starting in a position where you're like, okay, I'm going to start here, and then in 6 months they can go up, in a year they can go up again, all right? Now it's so easy to get stuck here because of the mindset around pricing your own work. You know, how can I put $3,000 or $4,000 price point on this piece of artwork? Say you've got, so I've got a plant that's right in it, I keep moving it, but wherever I go there's a leaf in the way. How can I put that price point on this piece of art? And if you've followed my 6 steps and it comes up with that sort of amount as where you should be starting, the little voice in your head might be saying things like, who am I to be charging that? And that is the mindset stuff, that is the belief stuff. And we have to remember a couple of things here. One is, we're likely not our target audience. We are not our customer. So your customer is not going to look at it and go, that's expensive, because that's not your customer. Your customer is going to look at it. Your ideal customer is going to look at it, fall in love with it, work out where it's going in their home, and purchase it, end of story. And we can allow our own stuff around money to actually get in the way of actually putting a price ticket on your items that really reflect the value of the artwork that you've created. So doing a little bit of mindset work and belief work and stepping back from it, stepping out of it and realizing this is a price point suitable for my audience is really how you want to come from. And it might feel a bit uncomfortable at first, but that first person that buys one is going to give you confidence. And the second one that buys one is going to give you more confidence, right? So you're going to start from that place of perhaps feeling a little bit awkward at the get-go, but I promise you it's going to feel better as it goes along. All right, the number 3 place that we often get started in is what I call the business model. That's kind of like, well, how are you going to operate the business? So for example, are you going to create a face-to-face business? That's what I had when I started out in the UK. So how did that look like? It looked like I set up shows by hiring venues. I did group shows, solo shows. I put my work into galleries. I took my work to art fairs. I did open houses regularly. So I built it around my location. Yes, I lugged artwork to London for art fairs, but essentially I was customer facing. I predominantly sold the art unless it was in a gallery situation or my agent was selling it for me. So that's what we call a face-to-face. If that lights you up, then that's going to be your business model, all right? However, you might say, oh my God, I don't want to deal with my customer at all. I want something that's online. So the model might be predominantly online from your website, from a third-party website, from a gallery website, or it might be that you're going to sell prints or you're going to do the print-on-demand model, so you're completely hands-off. And you might be a mixture of the two. You might say, well, I like the face-to-face business, but I also would like to sell online. Just bear in mind that operating those two things is a lot of time, energy, and effort and can be quite challenging. I think when you start out, it's best to be one or the other, just for simplicity. And as you grow, you can develop and widen your reach, of course. So you really want to decide, is it going to be face-to-face? Is it going to be predominantly online? Is it going to be hands-off model where all your artwork, you just create artwork, small artwork, it gets printed onto products and prints and it gets sold on a third-party platform like, for example, Etsy, where there's an audience already waiting. And yes, you have to do some marketing, but not perhaps as much as you might do for other models. So you're going to make a decision about that. So you're just going to make that decision. You'll be listening to me and go, oh my God, I really love this idea. Or, oh no, definitely don't want to do that. So you're going to think about it and make sure that it's in line with your big vision. Example, you decided, oh, I love the sound of face-to-face. I live maybe by the ocean. I live in a tourist town. I could totally build this business with, you know, stocking shops and galleries in the coastal town. I don't know why the coast is over here. The coast is over here. Could be over here. Anyway, I'm stocking my work in coastal towns. I'm going to do local art fairs. The whole thing is great. I'm going to do face-to-face. I love it. But then you look back at your big vision, and your big vision is about flexibility, freedom, hands-off, passive income. And so now the two things are not aligned. Do you see why it's so important, A, to have your big vision that you're going towards, and B, to create a plan that takes you to the big vision? So you'll be checking in and going, right, if that's my big vision, I need to build an online business that is going to take me towards that. If your big vision is owning your own gallery, well, hey presto, and you live in that town that's a tourist town, great, you can now start building up the business in terms of, you know, making connections locally and working like that. So your task is simply to make a decision and write it down. And honestly, by the time you finish this video, you will have all the key difficult pieces done, and you'll be able to then move on to a full plan and fully flesh it out with all the research and all the extra bits that goes, and the finances and some time planning and all the extra bits that go into a plan. And once you have that full plan, then you have your working document that you work off, and a whole load of the decision making, the overwhelm, the not sure what to do next is all taken away because it's in your plan. Let's move on to number 4. This is a biggie. Who exactly is going to buy what you've created? This is another huge stumbling block, right? So this is about choosing the niche that you're going to be in and getting clear on your audience. Now, I have a couple of videos. I'm going to link one of them on niche, choosing the niche, why it's so important, up here, and I will link them also below the video. In those videos, I explain why I believe it's so vital to choose a niche. When you choose a niche and you say, I do this thing, it makes your marketing so easy, because if you don't, you're trying to market to everybody, and I can promise you, you don't have the time or the budget to do that. So let's look at my example here. So I've decided that your example niche might be you focus on watercolor realistic seascapes of the south coast of England. You want to sell original art to start with, and then swiftly move into prints and plan on stocking tourist shops in these areas. The business model will be, of course, face-to-face. Predominantly it's galleries, shops, and maybe you'll want a website to back it up as well, of course, but predominantly it's going to be offline sales. Some of it's going to be hands-off, by the way, so it's going to be a little bit hands-off, because galleries, someone else is going to do it, shops, someone else is going to do it. So it might be that you have a solo show and you rent out some space, but I think a lot of it is going to be face-to-face, but hands-off is going to be your model. Your audience are likely going to be locals or tourists. That's predominantly who they're going to be, who love the area and really want reminders of specific places. So rather than a generic landscape, they actually want this cove, this village, these set of boats in this setting, right? So they can remember the lovely time they've had at those specific places. And if they live in the tourist town, they probably want art of their town, so they have it around their walls. This is a great niche, by the way. If you do happen to paint or live somewhere that's a little bit different, a bit iconic, you love painting it, I think this is one of the easiest ways to build a business personally. So your task, whatever it is to choose your niche. If you need to watch those other niche videos, do that, and then come back and go, right, okay, this is the niche that I'm choosing. Follow my example to give you the audience, right? So the audience came from the clear niche. Locals and tourists are going to be the predominant people. Now, obviously, we want to break down the audience into much more detail, and all of that happens more in a marketing plan. But for now, it gives us the basis to get going with. Number 5, how are you going to reach them? All right, this is the marketing piece. This is the next bit that most people get stuck on. So once you've figured it out, the numbers, how much you want to make, what you're selling, the price point, you've worked out your niche and who the audience are, then now it's time to go, okay, now I need a strategy to get my work in front of that audience. And I like to recommend for marketing that you kind of look at 3 to 5 marketing strategies to run your business. So for example, here I've said email marketing, it's a must. Now you might say, well, Sophie, a lot of the work in this example is going in galleries or shops, but actually a lot of people use their phones, don't they? So having an email list and being able to send out, even if it's just to people in the locality, you still want to do email marketing. The email list is the center of your business. So although it might not in this example be as important as a completely online business, it's still vital to be able to add people to the list and let them know that you have a new original, a new print, a new stockist in this particular place. This is where they can get, you know, images of this harbour or whatever. Right, really important, email marketing. And then I think really we'd be looking at SEO on the website, search engine optimization. So if you do put up a simple website, the website needs to geolocate you to that place that you're living in, and the copy and the images and everything needs to have all those specific places. And so it would be very easy if somebody was saying, oh, I had this great holiday in, I don't know, Brighton on the south coast. I wonder if there's anybody, I love watercolors, and they put it into Google after the fact, you know, watercolor paintings of the coast near Brighton. Now, if you've done the SEO right and your image pops up, well, that's very easy for them to go ahead to your website and make a purchase, right? So SEO would be crucial. I think Instagram in this case would probably also be crucial. A lot of people would be posting pictures or holiday snaps of the area. It would be very easy to work with local businesses and tag things on local businesses. So I think you'd probably want Instagram. Printed materials you could put up in tourist locations, in cafes, in galleries, in shops. So people wandering around could pick up a lovely card with your artwork on. So I think that would be a great strategy. And then what we call joint ventures, perhaps with tourist businesses. So it depends how big the area is and how much the tourist industry is involved there. But there might be a tourist centre, that might be tourist buses, tour buses that take you around. It could be that you could do something with them. It's worth exploring. I've put a question mark, but I would definitely say it's worth exploring. And then I think if you really get to the place when you build your business, then you could add Google Ads in, because Google Ads are great for geolocated businesses. So I think that would be your strategy, but you'd start out probably with the website, Instagram, printed materials, and then you'd add in your email marketing, perhaps your Google ads, and perhaps your joint ventures. So good mix for this niche of your watercolor realistic seascapes of the south coast of England. From there, you're going to want to build out a weekly routine. Carve out at least 2 hours a day to get this done, especially at the beginning. I have a ton of marketing videos, so I'll just pop a link to the playlist below this one. So your task, choose your 3 to 5 marketing strategies, write them down. So in conclusion, whilst these kind of tripping points are super important and the reason why most artists don't complete the plan, to be honest, it's not enough to build out the complete thing. So you still want to go ahead, once you've answered these questions, you take that information, and like I say, you either watch the longer video, which I think is going to signpost you to the course, or you buy the course and you get the whole thing done. And then in the course, I've actually got a training video on how to use your business plan as well on a day-by-day basis. So I hope that's been useful. I hope that's answered a few questions. If you have more questions about this, please don't hesitate and leave them in the comments below. I'll get notified and I'll answer them as quickly as I can. So next up, definitely catch that video around the business expenses, because I think that's also integral to you being able to fill out that first bit and not kind of trip on that first hurdle. So thank you so much for watching this video. If you've liked it, please don't forget to give me a thumbs up and of course subscribe, and I will see you on the next one.